crazy, do the mumble like a crazy with it.
Hey YouTube, it is Saturday, April 25th. I told you guys I would do a small video about prepping 101 militia basics from zero. That's kind of what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go through a few things, things that you want to get to start out, to go from zero. If you're new to the whole thing, the whole idea behind militia, behind prepping, I tell you what, if you're new to the idea behind emergency preparedness, that's all it boils down to. It's not even militia, it's not prepping, it's not, I'm not even going to put a connotation to it. If you're new to the idea of family security and your personal security, I'm going to go through a few things. These are a few things that I think that if you have, will put you in a better situation than most people. Probably 95% of Americans, and I don't have the exact statistics in front of me, don't have more than a week's worth of food in their house. That's not a good thing. And there's many scenarios that we can go through and discuss as to why that would be considered a bad thing. Natural disasters, martial law, blah, 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 blah. We all know the scenarios. If you're watching this channel, you obviously know the scenarios. So having said that, I'm going to do a basic overview. And you can go as far as with this as you want. And take it from there. I'm going to kind of go through food preparation as far as starting from zero. Now, keep in mind, this is not for the advanced preppers. This is not for you guys that have been doing this for years. This is just for, your average person who has just started doing this. Me, as far as the prepping situation goes, I can honestly say that I've probably only been at it, maybe a year, as far as being where I want to be. No way. You never have the time and money to be where you want to be. A lot of it boils down to dollars and cents, and I know a lot of people like myself are living on that budget. You only have so much money extra to spend, and the difference between buying groceries and putting gas in your car. I get that. I know where you're at. So having said that, I'm going to go through a few little things and kind of show you what I think the very minimum basics that you need to have would be. I mean, of course, people are going to add to this list and so on and so forth, and that's great. We encourage the discussion. So let's start out with let's start out with the most important thing, and that being water. Okay, so let's talk about water and transportation of water. This is an example of what I have on my go bag. Just a standard old U.S. military canteen and cup system. And it fits in this pouch and will fit right nicely on my go bag. I touched on this on my go bag video, bug out bag video, whatever you want to call it, 72-hour bag video. In my opinion, if you're going to start from zero, this is a good place to start because it's portable and it serves two purposes. You can boil water in both of these containers. It's 1 quart of water and it's transportable, and it will go on your bug out bag. I've had this thing for years and used it multiple times for various things, camping out. I mean, I've literally had this thing for probably 20 years. And it's seen a lot of campfires, as you can tell. But it is absolutely probably one of the things that I use the most, barring guns and ammo and food and everything. Water is the most important thing that you can have and that you can store. A CamelBak is another option for that, depending on, what you want. This is just a Redhead. This is a basic CamelBak. It is nothing special. It really is just another means of transporting and drinking water. It's a 2 liter, it's a 2 liter transport. has a 2-liter bladder in it. I'm sorry, and I think that between these two things, for a bug out bag or in a militia even scenario or a group scenario, I think everybody needs to have something along this line. 2 quarts of water, or a canteens, or 2 1-quart canteens. From a prepping and emergency standpoint, most people drink 2 liters of Coke or Pepsi or whatever your beverage may be. I store these. After my family loves Coke, we use it for many things. But anyway, Coca-Cola, whatever your choice may be, from a 2-liter bottle. Once you're done with the 2-liter bottle, it's really easy. Rinse it out, clean it out, and put water in it, and then store the 2-liter bottle. You get 10 of these saved up, you're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the game as for most people. And then change out your water. I change it out about every 3 months because, it's easy to just dump it out and put new in. And you don't have to worry about the water going bad. You fill it up to the top, you seal it tight, make sure the lid's on real tight, and you're good to go as far as storing water. If you want to take it one step further, you can store up a bunch of these. If you've got the room, you've got a house, you've got a garage, you've got whatever, you can move on to something even larger, which is what we have over here in the 55-gallon drum of water. This is another thing, this is that next step. I mean, as far as from zero, if I was telling people to start from zero, the 2-liter option is probably your best bet, because you could store these. They don't take up a lot of space, and you can store them underneath a shelf. So store up some water. Definitely have you some water stored. And again, very little cost involved in this. Grandma and Grandpa can store a couple extra 2 liters of bottled water just in case. So, there from your militia standpoint, your zero standpoint, you need a canteen and start with water. So next we're going to move on to our bags. I believe everybody should have a bug out bag, particularly if you were talking about have a readiness group, a readiness emergency preparedness group. Let's say that. This is the bag that I did my 72-hour video on. Went through that bag. This is another bag. This is a cheaper bag, actually. I got this from National Parks Depot online. You can find them on Facebook. It's a cheaper bag. I think I paid $29 for this bag, delivered. No shipping, delivered. Boom, $30. And it's kind of a cheaper knockoff of that bag. The UTG, this is more of a military issue bag. Again, this comes from National Parks Depot. So it's not, the webbing's not as good, it's not as durable, but it is a good bag to serve your needs, the purpose that you need to have. Again, your surplus store is going to be your friend when you're starting this. The canteens, things like that, Camelbacks, whatever, you can pick a lot of that stuff up fairly cheap at a surplus store. Look at yard sales. I found military surplus stuff at yard sales. So that's, another place to look for bags. You don't really even need a camouflage military bag. If you've got a book bag, a duffel bag that's big enough to serve your need, then that's what you use. You put together something. It doesn't have to be military grade. It doesn't have to be anything, out of this world, or spending hundreds of dollars on all this stuff. There's no reason to. If you're living like me on a budget, you find the ways around things. And I found that's probably the biggest thing. Actually, the bag is probably one of my biggest expenses, because I really liked that bag, and I know that it's built to last. So I've had this bag for a long time, this one here, and I know that it will hold up. And again, you add things to it. I add, Marine Corps pouches for the front to store cordage, to store, whatever I want to store in that. And it's big enough for 3 days excursion out into the field. From an emergency readiness standpoint. So check out my other video on this bag here, the 72-hour bag, and that gives you an idea of the stuff that I would carry in that. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about food. With the food, obviously everybody knows what an MRE is. MREs can be a little expensive. I'm going to show you an alternate to the MRE. Okay, so here is my alternate MRE, and I know some of these preppers and emergency guys are going to go off the deep end about this. But for me personally, I have found that throwing a couple of these in my bag or some of this in my bag is cost effective, and really the weight is not that much. It doesn't really affect me that much. As far as humping it out into the boondocks. It's solid food, man. You throw it in the fire, cooks up real quick, gets warm, you chow down, and you're good to go. These also, the thing about them is, I got these cans for $1.50. $1.50 at Family Dollar. So, keeping that in mind, I mean, if you're starting from zero, if you go to the grocery store, spend $3, buy you 2 cans of this, extra, just extra, and put it in a cupboard somewhere. It'll probably collect dust. They keep for about 2 years. In worst case scenario, you'll be happy you had it. And to be honest, I love the way this stuff tastes. I love it. It's awesome. So Campbell's, you need to sponsor me on this because I really love the chicken sirloin, or the grilled sirloin. So anyway, grab you a few cans, man. You'd be surprised in a couple of weeks. You go to the grocery store, and a lot of people go, twice a month, and in a month you can store up. If you pick up 2 or 3 or 4 cans each time you go out extra, before you know it, you've got a store, you've got a stockpile, and that's the way to do it. You can get you several cans of this stuff and have it sitting around the house. And again, you throw a couple cans in your bag for your readiness group. If you're going to go out in the field for 24 hours, 48 hours, you're good to go. You got grub, and that's the way to look at it. You won't be hungry out in the field, and believe me, hunger sucks. So that's definitely the way, in my opinion, to deal with that. And again, like I said, guys, hey, we're starting from zero here. So this is for the beginners. So if you guys, think about it in a cost-effective manner, this is probably one of the best ways to go. I recommend Spam, Treat, whatever. You can find that stuff pretty cheap, along with, stuff like this. And again, pick up a couple extra cans when you're in a grocery, and it'll put you ahead of the game. The next thing I want to talk about is communications. I know comms are a hot topic. To be honest, I am not a comms guy. I have had some friends help me out with some of the stuff. And to be honest, this is what we started with. These little, handheld radios. And they did the job from a house to house. You get about, honestly, a real mile line of sight out of these. Beyond that, they're great for like a neighborhood watch. They're great for, things along that line. And then I decided to step up after some urging from some like-minded fellow, friends, to move up to the Baofeng UV5R Pro. This is a ham radio. I do not have my ham license, thus I have not used it for that purpose, but I do use it to listen. It has to be programmed. There's a lot of information to this. It's not very hard to work. Ultimately, what I did is I just programmed it on an FRS channel to pick up these, and they all work together now. These are battery consumptive. They eat batteries and spit them out. So that is something to be thinking about. If you're starting from zero, you can pick up a set of these for about, $15, $10 at Walmart. And if I was going to have an emergency situation and I wanted to be able to keep my family together and we were together, this is a good thing to have. Even if you're out in the woods and you got to go take a leak, have a radio with you, take it with you. I know, there's a lot of scenarios where communications are important. These are a good way to address some of that communications issues. And if you've got, your group has 2 or 3 or 4 of these, it definitely puts you ahead of the game again, being able to communicate. So starting from zero, like I did, I started with this. I think these are like $10, $15, whatever. They weren't real expensive. I picked them up when I had a little extra coinage in my pocket because it was something that I was worried about. Good to have information. Cell phones go down, and they will. Internet goes down, and they will. There will be a lot of chatter and a lot of information being passed along via things like this. Ham radios, shortwave radios, these you can get marine channels on. There's a lot of things you can get, EMS, fire, police, you can get a lot of those channels on this. I don't know, check your laws and all that stuff for that information and go from there. I totally recommend you getting some type of a communication, whether it's a cheap little walkie-talkie or moving up the line. I picked this up on Amazon for about $35. And you can honestly say it's probably one of the best $35 I've ever spent on this. And then you can upgrade the antenna and so on and so forth. I got the short antenna on for having it in my chest rig, but that is from zero, guys. We're talking again from zero. So that's another thing to look at. Think about your communications. All right, so the next thing that I want to touch on is emergency power outage lights. A lot of people don't think about this stuff, but flashlight batteries go dead. Have some candles, kerosene lamps, things like that. This is cheap, dollar store. You can pick these up for $1. This Family Dollar or it was Family Dollar, like $2. And it's a little LED battery powered light. Things like these will save your life. And make sure you keep track of your batteries. Have extra batteries on hand. Candles you can't go wrong with, man. A lighter and a candle will go a long, long way in an emergency situation. Candles you can use to heat small areas. You can use them to start fires. A candle is the way. If you're going from zero, again, guys, I keep saying this, you're starting from zero. This is the way to start. Start with small things, start with cheap things that are going to make a big difference and dent in your safety, your security, and your morale, because morale is a big factor. Something to think about. I touched on this in the 72-hour bag video, but it's important enough to hit again. And I thought about it after I did the water section. Water filtration. Life straws, these little straws can save your life. They go a long, long, long way. I don't remember, I think this is like 25,000 gallons or whatever. That's a lot of water to be able to filtrate, and it removes, pathogens, Cryptosporidia, and so on and so forth. I don't remember all the pathogens, but for a single person, something like this, I picked this up at the surplus store for $10, and it works. And it is definitely something that you need to consider, again, from zero, guys. So far the stuff that I've talked about now, you've maybe spent $35, not including your bag. Add the bag, you've spent $60. Okay, so you're into prepping for $60 thus far, and you've got a means to filter water, you've got extra food, you've got a bag, and you've got light. And, that's not including the things that you guys already have laying around your house, like matches, lighters, things like that. Dryer lint to start fires, put it in Ziploc bags. You've got water in the aspect of 2-liter bottles that you filled up. You're into this for $60 and you're already ahead of probably 90% of the population. So that's something to think about. And, again, we're starting from zero and we're moving from there. Okay, next we're going to talk about the part that everybody wants to talk about. Everybody's always so interested in this part of it. Believe me, in my opinion, the other stuff outweighs these, but you have to have this. This is a starter. This is from zero. It may not look like much. What is this? This is a 410 single shot shotgun. And it is a squirrel gun. It's a long gun. And this is actually the gun that my grandfather gave me that I went hunting with for the first time. I don't even know how old this gun is, but it's that song, Granddaddy's Gun. This is it for me. It's a single shot, 410. And as you can see, there's nothing special to it. It is just your standard 410 single shot shotgun. And in a pinch, something like this, well, it can be sawed off to right here. And you take the handle down here, and you have a scatter gun. Something like this is a good home defense gun. Some people say, oh, what if you need more than one round? Listen, you pull off one round in a hallway, pop that, break that open, eject the shell, put a new one in. If there's more than one person, from a burglar standpoint or an intruder standpoint, they're already scattered towards the wind. So, this is something you can think about in a SHTF scenario. If this was my gun of choice, I already told you I would chop the end of this off. And I would chop the end of this off, and I would make this essentially a single shot pistol. Again, ATF doesn't allow us to do that right now, but we don't need to. So, having said that, from zero, you can pick something like this up for about $150. The firearms are where you're going to start spending a lot of money. I say $150. I know that's a lot of cash coin to come up with, off the jump. And there are other options for $150, $200 if you want to go that route. I recommend an SKS. I don't happen to have one of those. I used to have one, got rid of it. Not because I didn't like it, but because I upgraded. So, that's something else to think about. A simple shotgun like this is better than nothing. And again, you can hunt with this. It's a 410. It's a small shotgun. I was 9 years old when I went hunting with this gun. So, that tells you a kid can shoot this gun. Grandma can shoot this gun. Anybody pretty much can handle this firearm. And that is again, guys, we're starting from zero. So let's think cheap. Let's think easy. These are cheap and easy. You can upgrade and you can go from there. The next, thing to show you would be the upgrade to this. You can upgrade to something like this. This is a Mossberg 930 semi-auto shotgun. Has a shortened barrel. Completely legal, everything's legal. But this is a semi-automatic shotgun. It'll hold 5 rounds in it. And this gun right here is about $500. So if you're going to, bump up and you want to jump that far and you want a shotgun for home defense, nothing beats a shotgun. And I know most people won't argue that point with me. Because let's be honest, I'm not discharging an AR and I'm not discharging an AK inside my house because of over-penetration and things like that. A shotgun is definitely the way to go, and I'm not going to pull a Joe Biden on you guys and say, buy a shotgun, buy a shotgun. Well, in an emergency preparedness standpoint, in a militia standpoint, however you want to take it, 5 deer slugs through one of these will do the job. And we'll, and for home defense, bird shot out of a 3-inch shell down a hallway, that'll do the job too. You still have to aim these things. There are, I recommend getting training, from somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. It's not just something that you can, I guess you could technically figure it out, but it won't hurt you to get the training to be able to use a firearm. I recommend that everybody has some type of training for a firearm regardless. So that's, something to consider. Okay, so the next weapon I'm going to show you is a Remington 770. And again, we're starting from zero, guys, so I don't want any of the crap on the gun about, this is a crappy gun. Well, it's not. I've shot this numerous times. This gun is a 270 chambered round, and it's a high-powered round, and you can use this for deer hunting. You can also reach out and touch targets in about the 600-yard range, and I know because I've done it. So that is something to think about. And this gun you can pick up at Walmart for $330. So if you're going to upgrade, from your shotgun to, say, something a little more high-powered, in my personal opinion, this is not a bad route to go. Obviously, you can spend tons and tons and tons of money on high-powered rifles. Again, we're talking about from zero. So from a prepping emergency preparedness standpoint, this is a hunting rifle. This is also a reach out and touch someone rifle. So, keeping that in mind, this is what I present to you for that, and it is a good, reliable rifle. It's a bolt action. You have to take a little bit of time to learn how to shoot this and get used to shooting this, but it will definitely do the job. So, single shot, again, bolt action. But the cool thing about this is, and these weapons is, they are magazine fed. You can 5 rounds here, 1 in the chamber, so you got 6 shots, high powered, and you can rip through 6 shots in about a minute. Guys that are really, really good with them can do more than that, but from a hunting standpoint and from just a general standoff standpoint, this is a good weapon to have, and I like these. I believe that they're reliable. Some people will argue with you on that, but the gun culture, everybody's got an opinion, and everybody thinks they're right. But hey, again, personal preference. We're going back to that again. Remember, we talked about personal preference. This is another example of personal preference, and for the cost, I can't beat this rifle. So, I mean, there are others out there for about the same amount of money that guys will say, "Oh, that's a better rifle." Fine, okay. I'm not gonna argue that point. But this, for me personally, having used this gun and having shot this, I enjoy it, and it is, in my personal opinion, again, a good rifle. And last but not least, for rifles, I'm going to show you my personal rifle that I carry with me. This is a Norinco. It's a Mac 90 AK version. It was a sporter that I've put a Dragunov setup, Fiber Force setup on some single point sling with a cheap aim point sight on it, accurate. These things are tanks. The AK I can't talk highly enough about. I don't want to get into the argument of the AR versus the AK, having been through both of them. This is my preferred weapon system. You can pick, an AK Wasser up for about $450, $500 if you want to spend that money. These are cheaper than ARs. That's the other aspect behind this. So, again, from a cost standpoint, in my opinion, the AK is the way to go. I can't say enough positive about the AK. There's a lot of gun guys out there they are diehard AR guys. And you know what? That's great. And some, just have bad taste because it's a communist type of weapon. Well, that may be. But if a shit hits the fan scenario, there's going to be some ARs laying around that you can pick up on the ground. So I'll take it and I'll leave it at that. From a emergency preparedness militia standpoint, you need a solid rifle. Whether you choose to go bolt action or whether you choose to go AK, this would be the way to go. AR, AK, whatever, again, militia, if you're looking at that. And you need at a very minimum of 4 magazines from a militia standpoint, guys. Now, I'm just saying, not for home defense, not for any of that. From a militia standpoint, you need a minimum of 4 magazines. I prefer 6. I carry 6. Sometimes I'll carry 10. But 4 30-round mags. I happen to have a 40-round mag on this one. No, that's a 30. That's a 30. Anyway, laws. Check your laws. I know some laws say you can't have 30-round mags, you can't have 40, you can't have drums, whatever. But anyway, I've had this gun for so long, who knows. Anyway, so this gun, I can honestly say, has been in the mud, been in the snow, been in the rain, been underwater, has never failed me. It's always been a reliable firearm. So having said that, from a militia zero standpoint, I recommend a minimum of 4 magazines and a solid, sturdy rifle. Combat rifle, whether you go with SKS, whether you go with AK, whether you go with AR, whether you go with FN, whatever your choice may be, and whatever your pocketbook allows you to come up with. Hell, you can have an emergency preparedness group and use all shotguns, which would be fine.
So that's another way to look at that too. If you want to use, have 5 guys with 12 gauges, believe me, it's still going to be intimidating as hell. So that's something to think about. But from the militia zero standard, this is probably where I would say, guys, start with this. Next, you need a way to carry all of that ammunition. There's all kinds of tactical gear out there. There's all kinds of stuff that you can get. We're not going to get into body armor and all that stuff because you start getting into a lot of cost. So far, without your rifle, you're in it to $100. From an emergency readiness group, you all don't need camos and BDUs and all that other stuff. Hell, you can walk around in civilian clothes, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're not going out on missions. If that gets into militia stuff, that gets into tactical training, that gets into the stuff that we were talking about before. This is a VISM, VISM chest rig, and again, this is the comlink for that Baofeng radio that I keep up here on my shoulder with it, and you can see it's just hooked onto one of the straps. It stays up here, and it's a mic speaker, so keeping that together. This rig here was $15 on Amazon. I've used this in the field lots of times. As you can see, it's dirty, and I've even spray painted it. It was the tan color, but I spray painted it so that it kind of matched a little bit better for my area of the country. And it does the job very well. You have 3 pockets, 2 AK mags will fit in here, or 3 AR mags will fit in here. Velcro tops, elastic straps, pop a strap, do a mag change, you're good to go. It's got side pockets for whatever you choose to put in here. I usually keep a small IFAK, which is individual field first aid kit. So that, and then this one I usually keep a pair of my gloves, just extra gloves. There's some shooting gloves, mechanics gloves. Anyway, and of course, you have a knife attached. I've used that for cutting, and honestly, too, it looks kind of cool. So, that's your other option here. Again, for $15 though, you can't beat this. Without the rifle cost, you're in it for about $130 to get yourself started prepping from zero. You can go, tactical gear goes from, $50, $30, 20, this, all the way up to, God, you can spend thousands of dollars on this stuff. And again, it's whatever your pocketbook allows. I personally think that something like this rig would be a zero starter. In other words, if you, from zero, this is a starter kit. If you're going to start your own readiness group, you're going to start your own militia, you're going to start your own, whatever you want to call it, patriot group, whatever you choose to call it, to protect yourself and your family. This is a good way to start. A chest rig, a solid battle rifle, a good bag, you have some food, have you some water, and be ready to rock and roll. That's in my opinion the way that it goes. Depending on your situation financially, you can spend more, you can spend less. But as far as I'm concerned, for $15 you can't beat this thing. Okay, guys, so that pretty much covers it from a point zero. And if you're starting, this emergency preparedness thing, and you're starting, to figure out what do I need for defense of my family and security and safety of them, I think that's a good start. Having the necessary skills to go with the equipment is imperative. You have to learn how to do these things. You can't just grab a bag, grab your rifle, and run out the door and expect to fight the enemy. You have to train. You have to learn. Shooting at paper targets is one thing. Learning to shoot, move, and communicate is something entirely different. So, again, get off the couch and go do some shooting. Learn how to do your mag changes. Learn how your weapon works. Learn whatever weapon system you choose. Learn how to take it apart. Learn how to clean it and put it back together. It involves a little bit of time and investment. Prepping is not something that is just, you just do it, or you just buy stuff.
That's not prepping. In my opinion, again, I'm only speaking out of opinion here on a lot of this. So, opinions are like assholes, and everybody's got one, and so do I. Product placement. It's a Saturday afternoon. Anyway, so having said that, we went through in my opinion, the three things that you need to get started with, either an emergency preparedness for your own personal standpoint or from a group standpoint. If you have a group that has food, water, and security, and your group all has these three things, you basically are an emergency preparedness group. You're ahead of the curve, a long, long way ahead of the curve. A lot of people don't have this stuff, Groups work good because when you bring your families involved, and let's be realistic, if you're watching this, that most of these are because you're concerned about yourself, you're concerned about your family and their security and safety. We all are. I don't do this because, I think the shit's going to hit the fan tomorrow. No, I don't. I do this because it's a security blanket. I have a fire extinguisher in case there's a fire. Period. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get started doing this either. You're in at $200, like I said, without your rifle. You got $500 wrapped up, invested with your firearm, and ammo. Okay, $500, that's a lot of money. I know that's a lot of money. But you don't have to get it all at once. We've got time. You've got time. Don't freak out. There's no reason to run out and, mortgage the house to start prepping. That's not what it's about. Prepping is not about buying stuff. It's about training. It's about learning skills. It's about preparing. It's about getting food. It's about learning to garden. It's about, doing many other things. And the more skills that you have, the better off you're going to be. Again, knowledge is something no one can take away from you. Knowing how to garden, knowing how to make a raised planter bed, knowing when to plant things, knowing, what things to plant, is another aspect, and if you've got neighbors around you, you might have a couple of neighbors on either side of you. Well, communal gardens, divide the work, it's not something, that's the other thing about prepping, and I tried to do this all on my own. One person cannot do it on their own. You can provide on your own for your own security, for your immediate household. You can provide on your own, to a degree, the amount of food that you need, water, things like that. You can do that on your own. But, beyond that, beyond long-term survival, long-term happiness, takes more than one person. It takes community. It takes people on either side of you. Talk to your neighbors, learn their names, know their family, meet their kids. Most people are good people, and most people would be willing to help you. If I have one point to stress behind all of this, it's meeting your neighbors, learning who these people are, reaching out to people, making connections, making friendships. And that goes a long way into your own security and your own survival. That's definitely another topic that you go into. And as far as I had talked about wanting to start a militia, or people starting militias and doing it. There are a bunch of different ways that you can go about doing that. The groups of people that I've worked with all vary widely vary. Some have military command structures. Some don't. I don't personally believe in an emergency preparedness group / militia having a command structure. I don't like that. I like the idea of having specialists. And why I say that is, I can carry a rifle and I can shoot. I like to consider myself a jack of all trades. I like to know a little bit about everything, but I'm not really good at anything. I can shoot well, but beyond that, I've got holes. communications, like I said before, is one of them. We got a guy that happens to be really good with comms. He's a ham operator. He knows about this stuff. I'm going to defer to him as far as setting up, authentications and setting up our radios and having everybody on the same channel and plugged in and ready to go. I'm going to defer to him. He's the comm guy. I know a guy who's a mechanic, and he's a diesel mechanic. He was a Marine diesel mechanic. He's our truck guy. He's the engine guy. He's the mechanic. If something breaks, I'm going to defer to him. I don't know these things. I know another guy that's done survival, bushcraft, farming. He's a good old boy. I'm going to defer to him for questions. And this goes back to that. I mean, you can take it to the networking. It's the same thing. The militia, from the command structure point, one guy says, I'm the commanding officer of blah, blah, blah militia. That's good for you. That's awesome. But what's your specialty? Well, I can kick indoors and shoot. Good for you. I appreciate that. I can appreciate that. I can do that, yeah. Beyond that, no one person can do everything and knows everything. You have to defer to people who are specialists. I know a guy that can weld. He can up armor a vehicle if he needs to. Can I weld? Yeah, I can weld, but it's shitty. They're shitty welds. But he does it professionally. Another guy that happens to be, in the group, it's a spider, see him coming down. Another guy that happens to be in the group, get down, is an EMT. Actually, he's a paramedic now. And he's taken beyond, classes beyond paramedic. He's doc, period. Somebody gets hurt, he's answering the call. Networking, knowing people. That's the way you build a team, a readiness team, an exercise, to be able to do this stuff, because you can't do it on your own. So that's the way to, in my opinion, start a militia, to start a readiness group, to start whatever. Have people that you can defer to, that you can lean on, who know their shit, who know what they're doing. Some guys know tactics and, logistics and so on and so forth. There's a lot involved to it. But there's people out there who know this stuff. So you can do it on your own. You can get the ball rolling and you can bring people together. But once you bring people together and friendships are formed, you break bread together, you go on campouts together, and your families get to know each other. Your kids become friends. Then it becomes less of a doomsday shit hits the fan thing, as much more of a community friendship thing. So I guess ultimately what I'm preaching here is, and behind all of this, and if you're sitting and listening to all this video, what it all really boils down to is taking care of each other. We can't do it ourselves. We have to take care of each other. And in my personal belief, that's what this country was founded on. Freedom to do whatever you wanted, but also being there for your neighbor. So ultimately, how you choose to pursue this or take this is up to you. But beyond that, I would just say, you can start cheap and work your way up. And that's probably the easiest way to do it. So, having said that, I hope you have a good weekend. God bless you. And God bless America. And remember, knowledge is something they can never take away from you. ACAST signing out.